Hi there, Malcolm here with my 39th Booktube video, and today I'll be doing my July books wrap up. During July I managed 11 books. 2 weeks of July I spent lying on a beach, so I should have got a lot of reading done, right? No, I kept going to sleep. But I did manage 11 books, mostly before I went to the beach, so here we are. The first book I read was Fanboys vs Zombies 3, Escape from San Diego, which I picked up from my local library. The story follows the members of the Wrecking Crew for Life who were fortunate enough to witness the zombie apocalypse while attending Comic-Con. I can't tell you too much more, otherwise I'll be giving away what happened in books 1 and 2, but we are a few months later, there's some new characters, we've lost some old characters, and these guys have got to get out of San Diego. I love the fun artwork, the pop culture humour, there's some really great characters in this, and I also appreciate the unique take on the zombie genre as well. These aren't your typical zombies. I enjoyed these so much I would buy them. Following on from that, I finished reading book 4 of Liberty Meadows' Cold Cold Heart to the children. This is a comic strip by Frank Cho, featuring the zany animals and humans who inhabit the animal sanctuary Liberty Meadows. Some great gags are in this, really funny humour, lots of silly stuff happens, although this one did admittedly get a little bit risque for the children, so there were certain sections I did miss completely and then read on my own later. Highlights certainly include the Blizzard episode, Jen's seduction of Frank after he dumps her, and the shenanigans involving Dean's brain. This volume also sees the introduction of a new character, a raccoon with OCD. Unfortunately, he barely gets a look in before the series is concluded. This is the final book done, and as far as I'm aware, there are no more left in the pipeline. A very enjoyable read, the children enjoyed them too, worth buying. Next up is my book of the month. This title I pulled out of a jar I made for the job. Book 1 of the Tale of the Ketty J series, Retribution Falls by Chris Wooding. This is another painfully short series of only 4 books, following the crew of the Ketty J. I have done a separate review for this, so I'll leave a link to that in the information box down below. So go check that out if you want to know what I thought of this book. The next book I finished was an often recurring one on my TBR pile, Star Wars Droids. I finally read it, yes. This graphic novel features a series of stories or adventures that C-3PO and R2-D2 supposedly got up to before the events of A New Hope. The artwork is perhaps a little simplistic, and the stories, again, are not overly ambitious. The whole thing really did feel like it was aimed for younger readers. They were enjoyable enough, but didn't really add much to the Star Wars lore, or for that matter, have anything to do with it at all. It ends on a cliffhanger. We concluded in Star Wars Droids Rebellion. This is worth reading to a child. And then on to another graphic novel, Zombies vs Fanboys Volume 4, Apollo Z. Or Apollo Z if you live across the pond. As the name and cover picture might suggest, our heroes find themselves in space, taking their zombie shenanigans onto a space station. More death, mayhem, blood, all round good fun. Worth buying. The next book I finished was A Plague of Giants by Kevin Hearn. My wife received this one in a Page Habit box. I fancied giving it a go too, so I read it to her. This is a tome of just over 600 pages, so that took a little while. This edition came full of little sticky notes from the author telling us his thoughts on various ideas. And this is book 1 in the 7 Kennings series, and currently the only book in the series. He hasn't written the rest yet, but dearly looking forward to more. This fantasy story features a retelling of the events of 2 simultaneous invasions by giants from the point of view of a number of people. I found the story very cleverly told. I really enjoyed how rich and complex and well developed each individual group of people were. There's a beautiful map at the beginning showing all the territories, and the people in each territory really were their own people with their own culture, their own way of saying things, their own mannerisms, and were master of their own particular kenning, a magical power. The mechanics of magic in this world are really well thought out. In fact, I could spend the next half hour praising virtually every aspect of this book. We both thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would say it's booktastic. And then I finished my library book of the month, and that was Galactic Games, a short story collection edited by Brian Thomas Schmidt. This features about 20 short stories, loosely based on competitive sports, but in a future involving either different planets, different races, different species, genetic modifications, or other such science fiction based future stuff. As with most short story collections, each story has its own unique feel, and so I liked some more than others, but I liked all of them. I'm not going to bore you with 20 different synopses, but we cover things like racing, athletics, ice hockey, American football, And I would say that culturally, I did find the American football one a little bit hard, living in jolly old England and not being particularly sporty. A good chunk of that story was bogged down by the particulars of how the play went down, using lots of American football terms, and I just wasn't able to follow it, not knowing what they were talking about. I don't know American football, I don't care about American football, and it was page after page of just nonsensical gibberish as far as I was concerned. Whereas thankfully all the other stories didn't really get too bogged down with their particulars. They focused more on the characters or the situation or the political stresses or whatever it was that's surrounding the game rather than the actual game itself. I picked it up because I thought it looked interesting. I do like a good short story collection. I enjoyed the fact that it's all followed a common theme. I'm glad I read it. It's definitely worth reading. I'm also very glad I borrowed it. Next up was the final graphic novel I read this month, and that was Book 7 of The Walking Dead, The Calm Before. For those familiar with the TV series, this is after Woodbury. Laurel's heavily pregnant and expecting any minute. Someone's getting used to going around on crutches. And at the end, a certain antagonist turns up with a tank. My, what a cliffhanger. That is where the similarities end. The two storylines have differed quite a lot by this point, and none of it goes down how you think. I can't tell you more without giving away what's happened so far, or what happens in here. But certainly after the intensity of the last two editions, which were quite hard reading at times, this one really did live up to its title of being The Calm Before. It was a much more relaxing read, although there was an unexpected and somewhat shocking death. The final book I read before going away on holiday was Quantum Leap Random Measures by Ashley McConnell. This is a tie-in novel on the popular Quantum Leap TV series. And we have a cat on the table. There's a cat. Hello. Hello. That's really distracting. And it looks like while I tell you about this one, I'm joined by my cat, Quinlan. Hello. What was I going to say? Yes, I know. In this adventure, Sam finds himself in the body of a Native American, and Al leaves the imaging chamber to find he's happily married to a woman he never knew before, and finds himself torn between doing what needs to be done and his own personal interests. This was an enjoyable story, well told, and really captured the human element that the TV series focuses on. I'll say this is worth reading. Then I went to the beach, and the first book I read on the beach was The End of the Day by Claire North. This is a library book that I picked up because I came across as having the same ring as Mort by Terry Pratchett, one of the Discworld novels featuring Death's Apprentice. This one follows Charlie, the harbinger of death. The story has a nice idea, as it follows this rather unassuming British chap as he travels the world to keep appointments that turn up on his phone, to give someone a gift, and he comes as either a warning or as a courtesy. Poignant at times, it is an exploration of life and death, but long. Far too long. At 403 pages, I felt it was about 350 pages too many. This would have been better off as a short story or a short novella, as this book, regardless of how well it's told, is just a series of encounters. There's no overarching plot, there's no destiny in the story. At the end of the book ends, unsurprisingly enough, but the story doesn't because it never really started. I picked this up because I found the first 15 lives of Harry August interesting. However, had I read this one first, I wouldn't have given that book a second glance. And I'll say this book is boring, just plain dull. The final book I finished in the month of July was Star Wars: Lost Tribe of the Sith, The Collected Stories by John Jackson Miller. This collects up the 8 e-novellas that were previously published online, along with the larger story, Pandemonium, which was never published before. The story chronicles the members of a Sith ship as it crash lands on an unknown planet and is subsequently cut off from the galaxy. Set 5,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, the events cover about 2,500 years as the surviving Sith learn to survive and integrate themselves as the overlords of the planet they're on. Despite focusing mainly on the Sith, who by their very nature are generally unpleasant individuals, I found the characters very enjoyable to read about, if not particularly relatable, and enjoyed the natural progression from story to story as time passes. And I'm to understand that the descendants of the survivors at the end of the book feature in the Fate of the Jedi series of books that feature about 45 years after the Battle of Yavin. I've still got a way to go before I get there though. Really enjoyed this, and had I not already, I would buy it. So there we go, 11 books read in July, and a cat. If you have read any of those or are interested in reading any of those, then please either ask me some questions or give me some comments in the comment section down below. But as always, if you have nothing nice to say, then please keep it to yourself. Thank you. If you would like to share with me your summer reading, then please do leave a link or a list in the comment section down below, and I'll be sure to check those out. Finally, I'd like to point out that I have eventually pulled my finger out and released a book on Kindle, Flavours of Volume 1, a short story compilation. This features 9 short stories, from the farcical to the horrific, and might just give you an insight into what's going on in my brain. And it's on sale in the Kindle store now. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, see you later.